When the car sped towards us, Dad pulled my younger brother Kevin away, Mom hugged my older sister Clara, and I was the only one left standing on the curb. The car hit me, sending me flying. Luckily, my injuries weren't too severe, just a broken leg. From that day on, I stopped fighting Clara and Kevin for affection. I became understanding, obedient. I no longer harbored the illusion that my parents would love me. I almost died. Whether they loved me or not no longer mattered. Yet at that moment, they regretted it. They lifted my face, their hands trembling, and asked, "Don't you care about us at all?" That evening, after dinner, the whole family went for a walk. From a distance, a car sped toward us. Instinctively, Dad pulled Kevin away and Mom shielded Clara. They quickly moved to a safe spot on the side of the road. Only I, reacting too slowly, was hit by the car. My parents hugged Clara and Kevin, softly comforting them, completely ignoring me as I lay sprawled on the ground. The driver, flustered, got out and asked if anyone was hurt. My parents meticulously checked Clara and Kevin from head to toe, scrutinizing them several times before finally remembering to scold the driver. "What kind of driving is that? It's a good thing the children are fine. If you had hit them, could you have compensated us?" The driver bowed profusely, apologizing, murmuring, "Amitabh Buddha, it's good that no one was hurt." As I crawled out from the front of the car, I happened to hear that last line, "It's a good thing the children are fine." Tears streamed uncontrollably down my face. I was their child too. Clara was the firstborn, the family's precious eldest daughter, showered with boundless love by our parents. Kevin was the long-awaited son, his pampering beyond question. And I, Daisy, was an unexpected second daughter, the one in between. Among the three of us, Clara was Mom and Dad's treasure. Kevin was their darling, and I, Daisy, was merely the superfluous extra in this family. After that incident, on the way home, Clara and Kevin were still chasing each other, laughing, their joyous sounds echoing down the long road. Our parents watched them, their faces beaming with happiness, completely unconcerned by what had just happened. Kevin, running back and forth, accidentally bumped into my injured leg. "Ah!" I screamed in agony, feeling as if a joint had shifted. My shriek startled Kevin, who burst into tears and hid behind Clara, his wide, innocent eyes staring at me. At that moment, Mom immediately turned to me, glaring with reproach, and sternly scolded, "Daisy, how many times have I told you not to yell at your brother? Why do you never listen?" Her gaze at me grew increasingly disgusted, as if I weren't her child. It was always like this. No matter what Clara or Kevin did to me, I was never allowed to show any unhappiness, let alone resist. Otherwise, I would be seen as unreasonable, as trying to compete for affection. Mom always told me, only crying children get candy, but I had cried countless times. I had caused countless scenes, yet candy never once touched my lips, because my parents simply didn't see me. Just as they didn't see me being hit by a car, didn't see me limping, didn't see the drops of blood trailing down my leg with every step I took. I couldn't hold it in anymore and burst into loud sobs. The whole family fell silent. No one came to comfort me. They simply waited for me to finish crying, to finish my outburst, until I was exhausted and wiped my own tears. After I finished crying, Mom let out a soft sigh and stepped forward, intending to stroke my head. I recoiled, dodging her touch, and her hand met empty air. Mom looked momentarily awkward, then gently said, "Daisy, can't you understand your parents? It's not that we don't love you. Your sister is studying for her transfer exams, and your brother is still young and doesn't understand things. We have to devote a lot of our energy to taking care of them. Can't you worry us a little less?" I stifled the urge to ask, "Why is it always me who has to understand you? If I keep causing less trouble, won't you completely forget you even have a child like me?" But I couldn't voice those words, because the recent accident had clearly proven that they had long forgot they had a child like me. I suddenly found myself laughable, truly laughable, forever dreaming of possessing something that was never meant for me. I nodded softly. "Yes, okay." Seeing my agreement, Mom also breathed a sigh of relief. Just then, Kevin ran up, clinging to Mom. Mommy, Kevin is very good too. Kevin also makes Mommy feel at ease." Immediately, Mom's face lit up with a smile. She bent down and picked Kevin up. "Good Kevin. Kevin, apologize to your sister, okay?" "Yes," Kevin quickly replied, saying he was sorry to me, but from beginning to end, he never actually uttered an apology. Mom didn't even glance at me once, simply muttering, "Such a good boy." And just like that, he immediately received praise from our parents. I quietly watched them, the four of them walking ahead, while I could only drag my injured leg behind them. Mom turned her head, saw me lagging, and frowned, her voice full of annoyance. Daisy, how long are you going to pout? I gave birth to 3 children. Why are you the only one so stubborn and disobedient? I lowered my head, looking at the bloodstains spreading on my pant leg, and offered a self-mocking smile. My heart was colder than ever. My parents always thought I liked to compete for affection, that I always deliberately caused trouble to attract their attention. But they had no idea that ever since Kevin was born, I had been sent to the countryside for an entire year, only seeing them in summer and winter. I was the abandoned child. During those 2 or 3 short months with them, I tried my best to be good, only hoping my parents would keep me and not send me back to the countryside. But in their eyes, my efforts were merely being temperamental, unreasonable, and stubborn. I looked down at my feet, my heart filled with resentment towards myself. Daisy, why didn't you realize it sooner? If something can't be fought for, then fighting for it is useless. I asked myself again, must you really strive to snatch something that doesn't belong to you? This time, my answer was no. During dinner, my parents unexpectedly brought up how busy they'd been lately, unable to take care of 3 children at once. It's probably best to send one back to the countryside. As soon as the words left their lips, all eyes turned to me. This wasn't the first time this topic had come up. Ever since I was brought back to live with them a year ago, they had repeated this countless times, and each time, they looked at me exactly like this. Every time, I would have to smash plates and throw chopsticks to show my indignation, even crying and begging them not to send me away. My parents would always say with disgust, "Who said we're sending you away? Why are you overreacting? Look at your sister, look at your brother. Does anyone react as hysterically as you?" No, of course not, because only I had to worry about being sent away. Clara and Kevin never had to concern themselves with that. Suddenly, I realized. Perhaps my parents had long hoped I would offer to leave voluntarily. They didn't want to be the villains who kicked me out, so they kept bringing it up in front of me, hoping I would speak up myself. This time, I would do as they wished. I would give them what they wanted. Fine, I'll go back to the countryside. Everyone was stunned. I clearly saw the relief on my parents' faces. Mom even pretended to be concerned. Daisy, after a year with us, are you still not used to it? How fake. Even now, they still needed an excuse to justify themselves. I went along with Mom's suggestion and nodded gently. Yes, I'm not used to it. Maybe going back to the countryside would be better. Mom smiled brightly, her voice significantly lighter. Your parents love you very much and truly want to keep you, but we also respect your decision. If you want to go back to the countryside, your parents won't stop you. I also smiled, then retorted, so if I don't go, will Mom and Dad bring up, should we send one child back to the countryside every single day? If you don't send me, who will you send? Your precious eldest daughter? Or your 2 darling sons whom you cherish so much? Mom gasped in surprise, her mouth agape. Everyone around looked at me with reproach. I merely shrugged, feigning an apology. Oh, sorry, did I upset Mom and Dad again? And just like that, I was sent back to the countryside to live with my grandmother. She was deeply biased, favoring my older cousin from my uncle's side and always disparaged girls. In her house, I didn't even have my own room. I could only sleep in the storage shed. There was no bed, just a tattered blanket spread on the dirt floor. I had to live by her moods. If I ate a little too much, she would glare at me with annoyance. I had to wake up early, finish all the chores, and cook breakfast before I was allowed to go to school. But the breakfast I cooked, I wasn't allowed to eat. I could only grab a cold steamed bun and eat it as I walked. Even so, Grandma would always mutter, "A girl eating so much, how can I afford to raise her like this?" Living in someone else's house, I could only eat less and less. Even when I was so hungry my stomach cramped with pain, I dared not eat another bite of rice. My parents despised me. They could send me back to the countryside. If even my grandmother grew to resent me, I truly would have nowhere left to go. After all, I didn't want to die alone by the roadside. Days passed, one by one. Mid-Autumn Festival, the 15th day of the 8th lunar month. My parents brought Clara and Kevin back to the countryside. Hearing this news, I felt a flicker of joy. I quickly ran back to Grandma's house, but just as I reached the gate, I saw the dog, Big Yellow, run out of the yard, a chicken leg in its mouth. For some reason, I suddenly froze. Instead of rushing inside, I turned and chased Big Yellow. I couldn't remember how long it had been since I'd eaten meat, let alone the last time I'd eaten my fill. In my eyes, at that moment, there was only the chicken leg in Big Yellow's mouth. Saliva poured uncontrollably. I think my eyes probably gleamed like a hungry wolf spotting its prey. I lured Big Yellow closer, then reached out and snatched the chicken leg from its mouth. Perhaps Big Yellow never imagined a human would compete with a dog for food, so I took the chicken leg effortlessly. The chicken leg was covered in dirt and Big Yellow's saliva, but I didn't care. I only smelled the delicious scent of meat. I ravenously devoured it, stuffing piece after piece into my mouth. So delicious, Big Yellow watched me resentfully. Only when I had eaten every last bit did it bark loudly in protest. I tossed it the remaining bone, which it quickly snatched and ran off. I sat on the ground, savoring the lingering taste of the meat, smiling with satisfaction. Compared to hunger, self-respect was nothing. But as I looked up, I suddenly saw Clara standing in the distance, watching me. I didn't know how long she had been there. Just a moment ago, I thought self-respect wasn't worth anything, but now I just wanted to find a place to hide. Clara didn't say anything. She walked up to me and softly called, "Come home to eat." I didn't expect her to say that. A warmth bloomed in my heart. She even reached out to pull me up, but I looked down at my greasy hands and didn't dare to take hers. Finally, I quickly wiped my hands on my clothes before daring to hold her hand. Clara subtly winced, a look of distaste flashing across her face. Back at Grandma's house, hearing the boisterous laughter and chatter inside, I suddenly didn't want to step in. Kevin's childish voice piped up, "Why hasn't Daisy come in yet?" In an instant, the noisy room fell silent. Mom's cold voice rang out, "If Clara hadn't told me, I wouldn't have known Daisy was so jealous. Just because she's mad about being sent back to the countryside, she dared to throw away all of Dad's asthma medication." Dad also angrily roared, "This girl truly has been spoiled too much. This time she needs to be disciplined seriously. How dare she do something so drastic?" Grandma also continuously berated me, "Daisy, you truly get naughtier as you get older." Everyone in the room united in criticizing me. And I was simply a thorn in their eyes. Was my greatest purpose to make this family more united? I remembered the day before I was sent back to the countryside. Kevin had rummaged through the family's medicine box. Clara had even witnessed this, even yelling at Kevin not to touch the blue bottle, saying it was Dad's emergency medicine and losing it could be life-threatening. Thinking back, perhaps to protect Kevin from punishment, I became the bad child, with all the blame heaped upon me. I looked up, staring at Clara's nape. "You know I didn't do it, right?" Clara turned her head, glared at me and snapped, "Shut up." Perhaps my gaze was too direct. She flinched, avoiding my eyes. She stubbornly said, "Kevin is small, he doesn't understand things. You're his older sister. What if he did a little something? Are we family or not? Do we really need to clearly distinguish right from wrong to this extent?" Her tone was full of self-evidence. I let out a sarcastic, bitter laugh. "No need to distinguish right from wrong, you say? Then why is the blame always piled onto me?" I knew arguing was useless. Even if I said I didn't do it, even if Clara testified, my parents wouldn't believe me. So I said coldly, "Fine, I'll take the blame, but you have to give me money, lots of money." Clara looked at me with disdain. She pulled out her wallet, filled with large denomination bills. She took out 500 yuan, held it up, and asked, "Is this enough?" I silently calculated. 500 yuan. One steamed bun costs 0.5 yuan. Eating 2 a day is 1 yuan. If I could add a packet of salted seaweed, it would only be 2 yuan. 500 yuan would be enough for me to eat for half a year. I nodded. Clara threw the money onto the ground, contemptuously saying, "Daisy, look at yourself. Is your self-respect only worth 500 yuan? How cheap?" I looked at Clara's wallet. There was at least 2,000 yuan more inside, but I didn't dare to ask for more. I was afraid she wouldn't agree, and then I wouldn't even have this 500 yuan. I bent down and picked up the bills one by one. Then Clara looked at me, slowly asking, "You have the money now, do you know what to do?" I nodded. It was I who threw away Dad's asthma medication. But Clara grew even angrier. "Daisy, as long as there's money, you'd do anything, wouldn't you? Why don't you have any self-respect?" In the past, I would definitely have lunged at Clara and fought her. But what then? Afterwards, my parents would only think I was a worse child, hate me more. I would continue to be left here, continuing to endure days where my stomach cramped with hunger. Who knows, maybe one day I would starve to death here. But if I admitted guilt, I would have money. I could survive. That feeling of a stomach cramping from hunger, Clara probably wouldn't understand it in her whole life. Thinking of this, my stomach twinged again. I clutched my belly, cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. I gritted my teeth and said, "My stomach hurts so much. Can you buy me 2 painkillers?" Clara looked at me with scorn. "You're quite a good actress, aren't you? After just a few words, you're faking a stomach ache." With that, she strode into the house, leaving me outside, trembling with pain. As soon as she entered, she loudly announced, "She's outside the door, refusing to come in. She's probably waiting for someone to invite her in." I gave a bitter laugh, then gradually faded. Before completely losing consciousness, I seemed to see my parents rushing towards me in a panic. I thought, this must be an illusion. How could my parents ever worry about me? When I regained consciousness, before I even opened my eyes, I heard Grandma's complaining voice. "This girl, ever since she heard you two were coming back, she's been starving herself for days. All just to torture herself to end up in the hospital, wanting you to see how pathetic she is, so you'll take her back to the city to live comfortably. You're her biological parents, and I'm her biological grandmother. How could I let her starve and be malnourished? In my house, she's like a young lady who doesn't lift a finger, and now she's even slandering me. I'd rather die." I squeezed my eyes shut, not daring to let anyone know I was awake. My parents hurriedly apologized to Grandma, saying I was unreasonable. They placated her for a long time before she finally agreed to go home and rest. Only after everyone had left did I dare to open my eyes. A nurse, seeing me awake, joyfully exclaimed, "You're awake." Her bright smile was completely devoid of pretense, making my eyes sting. How long had it been since someone had genuinely smiled at me like that? The nurse offered me a small bowl of plain porridge, gently saying, "Your stomach is still weak, you can't eat anything heavy. Let me feed you some porridge, okay? You'll feel better once you eat." I cried and nodded. She gently wiped my tears, spoon-feeding me the porridge. I was truly too weak. Before I could finish the bowl, I drifted off again. Actually, it wasn't really sleep. I was just too tired to open my eyes. But that didn't stop me from hearing the conversation outside. The nurse sighed to the patient in the next bed. "This family is truly strange. Even if a child intentionally starves herself, she wouldn't become so thin that she's just skin and bones. Look at her hands, they're so rough, nothing like a child's nowadays. Even a rural child who herds cows might not be thinner than her." That old woman's words were so incoherent and full of holes, yet the whole family believed her blindly. The child isn't even fully conscious, and they've already gone out to eat, leaving her here alone, starved to the point of fainting, with no one to care. Hearing those words, tears involuntarily spilled from the corners of my eyes. A mere stranger could see, just by looking at me, that I wasn't doing well. So how could my own family not see it? My parents brought Clara and Kevin back to the countryside. After they had eaten their fill outside, no one brought me anything, not even leftover scraps. My parents sternly told me, "It's not good for a young child to have too many thoughts." Clara looked at me, her voice cold. "Do you really have to pretend to be tortured for outsiders to see?" Only Kevin, oblivious to everything, happily tugged my hand. "Daisy, let's play hide and seek." I wanted to say I was very weak, that I couldn't even stand steadily, but when I saw the cold gazes of my parents and Clara, the words choked in my throat. "Okay, I'll play with you." I gritted my teeth, enduring the dizziness, running back and forth with him. Before I collapsed, I quietly lay down on the bed, finally satisfying my parents. They smiled and said, "We only came back to the countryside to visit you for the Mid-Autumn Festival. Now that we see you're fine, we're relieved. Work is very busy, and your sister has transfer exams next year. We need to go back quickly. Just stay in the hospital for another day, and when you feel better, go back to Grandma's house. Remember to be obedient and don't make Grandma angry." "Daisy, can you worry your parents a little less?" I forced a smile. "Yes." Even though I didn't know where they saw that I was fine, it didn't matter. After all, the whole family had happily left, the four of them neatly gathered together. The nurse walked over and asked me, "Just now, you were running around. I noticed your leg seemed unusual. What's wrong?" I gave a bitter laugh. I had an accident before, and maybe the bone healed incorrectly. Not a single person in my family had noticed my emaciated legs. Even if they had, they would have just thought I was faking it. I asked myself why I couldn't get used to their coldness, why it still hurt me. The next day, I was discharged from the hospital and returned to Grandma's house, back to the storage shed with only an old blanket. But one thing was better than before. Grandma no longer dared to restrict my food. After all, she was genuinely afraid I might starve to death. A year passed. My uncle's family also moved to the city for work. After discussing it with my father, they decided to rent an apartment for Grandma to live there. I also followed Grandma back to the city, but in a 2-bedroom, 1-living-room apartment, there was, of course, no room for me. I could only stay in a small room on the first floor, a cramped storage space, less than 2 meters wide, with no windows. Even so, I was happy because there were more opportunities to earn money in the city. I no longer had to fear hunger. As long as I told restaurant owners that I was working part-time to pay for my own tuition, even though I was young, they would willingly give me a symbolic job. Each month, I could earn 500 yuan. At school, I applied for impoverished student assistance and also received a scholarship. Everything seemed to be gradually getting better. But during a school health checkup, I was found to have a serious heart condition. The doctor said my heart was severely damaged and required surgery as soon as possible. If the disease progressed, I would miss the best window for treatment. The surgery cost wasn't too high, a little over 200,000 yuan would suffice. I thought back to my parents' house, and considering their means, this amount surely wouldn't be a major issue. But before I could even open my mouth, they received a confirmation that I was classified as an impoverished student. My parents were stunned that I had applied for assistance. When Clara found out, she harshly reprimanded me. "You're bringing shame to our family." I didn't understand why I was shaming them. "Daisy, how desperately do you crave money? Have we treated you so badly? How dare you even try to cheat the school's assistance program?" They looked incredibly disappointed in me. I didn't understand. If I didn't work part-time, I wouldn't have anything to eat. I applied for assistance simply because I was about to take my high school entrance exams, and the scholarship and assistance could help me cover tuition, giving me a less miserable summer. Why did it feel like I had committed a grave sin? These things could be explained later, but right now, the most important thing was to tell them I was sick. I presented my health report, but when my parents saw it, not only were they not worried, their anger flared even more. "Daisy, you even prepared fake documents? Where did you get this? Heart disease? I don't see anything wrong with you. You're really good at this. Now you want to trick us out of 200,000 yuan. What do you plan to do with that money? You're truly a disgrace to this family." The continuous accusations rained down, pushing me into a dark abyss. In my mind, only one sentence echoed repeatedly: "They don't want to treat me." I stumbled out of my parents' house, my strong survival instinct unconsciously driving me towards the hospital. I cried and begged the doctor, "My family doesn't want to treat me. Is there any way to postpone it? Can I delay it for a few years, wait until I've earned enough money, and then treat myself?" The doctor looked at me, a skinny, sickly child. He didn't need any documents to believe my words instantly. He seriously told me, "This disease cannot be postponed. If surgery isn't performed promptly, the condition will progress very quickly." He said he would help me apply for an assistance program to see if I qualified for a partial waiver of surgery costs or installment payments. I immediately knelt down to thank him. The doctor quickly helped me up, his eyes tinged with red. Finally, he advised, "Normally, don't let yourself get too emotional. You must keep your mood stable." I nodded. As long as I stay away from my family, I should be able to control my emotions. I continued to plan, relying on my scholarship, assistance, and part-time earnings. I calculated how much I could afford, but then my homeroom teacher called me for a talk. "Daisy, I don't understand why you applied for impoverished student assistance, but do you know that assistance is for students in truly difficult circumstances?" I replied, confused, "Teacher, I really am struggling. You can clearly see it. At school, I'm the worst dressed, using the cheapest things in class." The teacher sighed, "But your parents came to school in a BMW. They said your family is much better off than many other students. They even said they don't know what you plan to do with that money and asked the school to supervise you and help you break your habit of lying." I was numb, but the teacher continued, "As for the scholarship, it's true your academic performance is excellent, but your character perhaps needs to be reevaluated." I don't know how I walked out of that office. When I got back to class, I could hear students whispering and pointing. Emotions surged, my heart ached with unbearable discomfort. I forced myself to calm down, analyzing the current situation. What I needed most now was money. Perhaps I should drop out of school and work full-time. If I just worked hard, I could still afford the surgery in installments. I held my breath, waiting for news from the doctor. Finally, I received good news. The hospital agreed to waive half of the surgery cost and allow me to pay in installments. Each month, I only needed to pay 2,000 yuan. I was both overjoyed and astonished. I hesitated, asking, "Doesn't the hospital need to contact my family to confirm the situation? My family is very complicated." The doctor looked at me kindly. "Our hospital has a nurse who knows you. When she saw your name, she secretly came to check and confirm your circumstances. It's not simple." Thanks to her testimony, the hospital was able to grant you this policy. A nurse? I thought and thought but couldn't guess who it was. Under the doctor's guidance, I found her. It was the nurse who had taken care of me at the hospital back home. She said her surname was Yu. During a gathering with other doctors, they accidentally mentioned my name. She immediately remembered me, a patient who had left a deep impression on her. When I was admitted, she secretly looked me up and confirmed it was me. Although she didn't know much about my specific situation, thanks to her, the hospital had given me a lifeline. I held her hand tightly, thanking her repeatedly. She smiled gently and said, "You're so foolish." I thought, perhaps heaven still has some mercy for me. Whenever I fall into despair, there's always a small flicker of light. But I never expected that glimmer of hope to lead to yet another abyss. To survive, because of my young age, I could only take on part-time jobs for a few hours each day. Even working 3 jobs, I only earned 1,500 yuan a month. I dared not spend a single cent. On weekends, I took on extra house cleaning jobs. Though exhausting, 2 days could earn me an additional 500 yuan, and sometimes, if lucky, even 700 or 800 yuan. I had negotiated with the hospital to reschedule my surgery for the summer break. I planned to inform my parents before the operation. After all, they would have to sign the consent forms. If they refused, I would turn to the police for help. It seemed life finally had a glimmer of hope again. This weekend, I took a house cleaning job for a lavish party. When I and another cleaner arrived, the host's party hadn't ended yet. Their daughter had invited friends over for a house party. We could only wait until they finished their festivities before starting to clean. The household helper, seeing how young I was, secretly slipped me a pile of food. She praised me, saying I was sensible to be working and helping my family at such a young age. Seeing her repeatedly carry fruit inside, I proactively offered to help. But as soon as I stepped into the living room, I saw my older sister sitting on the sofa, happily chatting with her friends. She also saw me, her eyes filled with rage, as if she wanted to tear me apart instantly. She found an excuse to leave her friends, dragged me into a corner and gritted her teeth, asking, "Daisy, what tricks are you pulling now? Are you out earning money because our family doesn't have enough food? Why do you always have to embarrass the family like this?" Every word was filled with sarcasm. I looked at Clara, dressed in luxurious designer brands, then down at my own cheap 20 yuan shirt. How ridiculous. I took a step towards her, a cold smile on my face. "Look at me, Clara. Look closely at this appearance. Do I look like I'm living well?" Clara's eyes swept over me, as if seeing for the first time how emaciated I was. "Daisy, why are you so thin?" I didn't bother to answer, turning my back and walking away. But she wouldn't let me go. She even secretly followed me, investigating, and uncovered the agreement between me and the hospital. That day, right after school, I received a call from the hospital. They said my parents had come and provided financial documents, proving that I didn't need any financial assistance. The hospital immediately canceled the aid program for my surgery. My parents brought Clara and Kevin to school to pick me up. They looked at me, their eyes filled with heartache and disappointment. Mom wailed, "Daisy, what on earth has turned you into this? How dare you lie to the hospital?" Dad looked at me with utter disgust. As for Clara, it went without saying, if looks could kill, I would have been reduced to dust. Kevin solemnly echoed, "Daisy is a liar, she's a bad child." I looked at my family. They stood together, united against me. Anger surged in my chest, I couldn't bear it anymore. Blood rose to my throat and I coughed it out in mouthfuls. My parents, Clara and Kevin, were all stunned. When they came to their senses, they frantically screamed for an ambulance. I clearly felt a sharp pain from my heart. My consciousness gradually blurred, but I wasn't afraid. I only felt a sense of calm. After so many years of struggle, I finally found peace. The rapid test results came back. The doctor said my condition was very bad. Surgery was no longer possible. Although the doctor spoke very skillfully, I clearly understood what he meant, beyond saving. My parents and Clara collapsed, bursting into tears. The doctor shook his head, saying, if it had been just 1 month earlier, the success rate would still have been very high. If she hadn't suffered such severe emotional trauma, the disease wouldn't have progressed so quickly. I smiled. My parents, seeing me smile, cried even more fiercely. I didn't understand why they were crying. I calmly said, "I want to go home." My parents dared not object, hurriedly carrying me into the car. But when I saw the direction the car was going, I spoke up again, "I want to go to my home." The entire car fell silent. Finally, they turned the car around, heading towards Grandma's house. My father carried me upstairs and asked Grandma, "Where is Daisy's room?" Grandma stammered, not daring to say anything. I smiled. My room is downstairs. The whole family was stunned but still followed my words. The door opened and everyone was speechless. The room was less than 2 square meters with no windows, no bed, just a few cardboard pieces laid on the dirt floor, topped with an old, worn blanket. The air was suffocating, permeated with a damp, moldy smell. Clara trembled, asking, "Daisy, have you been living in this room all this time?" I chuckled softly. How could I? Back in the countryside, I even lived in the woodshed. It was open on all sides, with windows but no glass. Compared to that, this is much better. Clara's face was pale, her lips moved, but no words came out. My mother wailed, turning to interrogate Grandma. "I send you 8,000 yuan every month, and you treat Daisy like this?" Grandma bent her back, her voice soft as she defended herself. "You two yourselves saw her as a burden." "Did you really expect me to treat her well?" I nodded. "Grandma is right." My parents staggered. They no longer wanted to argue, they just wanted to take me home. From an abandoned child, I suddenly became the center of the family. My parents abandoned their work, staying by my side day and night. They rushed everywhere looking for doctors, but every specialist's answer was the same. "It's too late. If it had been earlier, things would have been different. If she hadn't suffered so much emotional trauma, the disease wouldn't have become this severe." Each time they heard those words, my parents' faces grew a little paler. Their eyes, when they looked at me, were filled with remorse. But I didn't care. Perhaps I had become twisted. Seeing them in pain, seeing them in despair, I felt a perverse joy. I even felt that their remorse wasn't enough, that they hadn't suffered enough. I deliberately limped in front of them. Mom asked, "What's wrong?" I feigned indifference, replying, "Oh, nothing. My leg was broken in that car accident a long time ago. The bone never healed properly. After all, no one took me to the hospital. They just immediately sent me back to the countryside. How could it heal? But it's okay. I'm going to die soon anyway. It's a good thing I didn't go to the hospital back then. Otherwise, it would have been a waste of money, right?" Mom buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. Dad stood there, his face ashen, unable to speak. Kevin suddenly remembered something and excitedly shouted, "Daisy is a liar! Liar, liar, liar!" Slap. Clara slapped Kevin squarely across the face. Mom quickly rushed to hug Kevin, rubbing his bruised cheek, but she couldn't bring herself to scold Clara. She could only murmur, "Why did you hit your brother?" Clara's eyes were red-rimmed, and she choked out, "I shouldn't just hit him, Mom. I should hit myself too." With that, she raised her hand and slapped herself hard across the face. Mom cried, stopping her hand, and asked, "What on earth is wrong with you, Clara?" Clara trembled, saying, "Everyone in this family has bullied Daisy, which is why she's suffering so much. Dad's asthma medication was thrown away by Kevin, not Daisy." "Not Daisy?" My parents stood frozen, looking at me speechless. Mom released Kevin, intending to hug me. I said coldly, "Don't you find it disgusting?" A sharp pain pierced my chest. My heart seemed to stop. My mind grew increasingly hazy. Clara asked me if I wanted to eat anything. I suddenly remembered that chicken leg from all those years ago, the chicken leg I had snatched from Big Yellow's mouth, covered in dirt and dog saliva. I said, "Do you remember that year I ate a chicken leg I stole from a dog?" Clara's face paled. She didn't say anything. I continued to ask, "Did you think I was shameful?" But that was the most delicious thing I had ever eaten, because before that, it had been so long since I'd had meat. She cried, "I'm sorry, Daisy." I curled my lips into a cold smile. "Now that I'm about to die, do you still expect me to say, 'It's okay'?" She cried, shaking her head. "No," I asked mockingly. "Do you think if you say sorry many, many times, you'll feel better? You can just ignore my feelings just like before." She bit her lip tightly, unable to say another word. The next day, Mom asked if there was anything else I wanted to do. I replied, "I want to see someone." Mom didn't even ask who I wanted to see, immediately telling Clara to call Dad and urge him to come home right away. I forced out a sneering laugh. Why, even at this final moment, did they still think the person I wanted to see was someone from this family? I strained to say clearly, "I want to see the nurse." It took them a long while to understand who I was talking about, then they frantically tried to contact her. But when the nurse arrived, I was only drawing my last breath. I asked her, "Can you take me away? I don't want to see them anymore." The nurse's eyes were red-rimmed, but she nodded. "Okay." After that, everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, I had become a transparent soul. I saw everyone kneeling around my body, weeping mournfully. Mom continuously performed CPR on me. Clara's face turned ashen, then she fainted. Kevin cried until his voice was hoarse, but no one paid him any mind. Dad, the man who was once strong and steadfast, now stood there, his back slowly hunching, but I felt nothing. The nurse took my ashes and scattered them into the sea. She said, "Be free, Daisy." Mom begged her to keep some of my belongings. The nurse coldly replied, "If you truly wish Daisy well, go pray to Buddha." Mom nodded frantically. "I will pray to Buddha, pray that Daisy will be my daughter again in the next life so I can make amends." The nurse let out a mocking laugh. "You should pray to Buddha that Daisy never encounters your family again, lifetime after lifetime." I was stunned. Indeed, the nurse understood me best. After I passed away, Clara never recovered from the shock. She failed her university entrance exams and could only attend a mediocre college, living a wasted, meaningless life. Kevin was sent to a boarding school, only coming home once every 6 months. My parents began to argue incessantly, each blaming the other for my death. Dad cut off ties with Grandma, no longer providing her with an allowance. My uncle, who had only used Grandma to receive money from my parents, now saw her as a burden and abandoned her, leaving her to fend for herself in the countryside. Without my parents' allowance, Grandma struggled so much that she couldn't even afford 3 meals a day, relying on neighbors' charity to survive. As time went on, people no longer wanted to help. Grandma was so hungry she cried desperately. This family, in the end, no longer resembled a family at all. I looked at the rising sun. I thought, it's time for me to go.